Hey, this is Todd trying this a second time. So we'll see if this works. Let me go ahead. So last time, I did this yesterday. Everything seemed good from my end. I hope it sounds good on your end at this point because when I got around to checking out the stream afterwards, discovered that I had no audio. Not only did I not have any audio on Twitch, the files that I had saved locally also had no audio, but I can't remember not seeing anything. I use OBS. Sorry to give you this little behind the scenes bit, but just to explain, I guess I had no audio. So now I'm backing it up. I have a Tascam, just kind of hand recorder that I'm backing this up on. I was trying to figure out a way that I could chain things together where I could input from my mic to the Tascam and then out to my other to my USB interface, but that was not working out. So hopefully this audio will work fine because I fear that now I'm just using the built-in mic on the Tascam that if I have to drop this other audio in after the fact, it will not sound very nice. But here I am trying second time in a row. Hopefully second time is the charm to do a read through, at least partially. I have about 2 hours here, and if I have my druthers, I will fill it all with looking at Elthos role playing game, the core rulebook. Whoops, let me go. Oops, I went to the wrong page. Let me get the nice, where's the cover art? Here we go. Here is the cover art. It's by Mark Abrams, or Abrams, sorry, Abrams. That the fancy B threw me off there for a second. He and I are Discord friends through Tenkar's Tavern. I had at the beginning of the summer put out sort of a call saying, "Hey, I want to look at some different rules and talk about them and kind of do some stuff for the channel. So if you're interested, send me some stuff." He was very kind to send me this, along with, he has an online component, which I really appreciate, and I think more content creators, when they're doing systems and lots of things like that, should look at what kind of digital tools they can provide, not just relying on fans to do them on Roll20 or whatever digital thing they're using, actually making your own tool. But I will cover that digital tool separately. Right now, I'm just going to look through the core rulebook. What I had said yesterday is that I hadn't looked at this since the beginning of the summer. I kind of went through it, took a glance. I thought I was going to get kind of being able to get right to doing this kind of read through. It didn't work out that way. So unfortunately, or not unfortunately, but it was really going to be a pure sort of, I guess, I felt like a very sort of accurate read through. The idea with the read throughs was basically going to be is, hey, if you and I were hanging out at the local game store and you pulled off a book off the bookshelf, you started flipping through it to see, is this for me, right? How does this look? Is this something that I want to bring home? Now, the first time yesterday would have been a pretty true look at that because I'd really forgotten most of what I had read, or at least it wasn't in the front of my mind. Now, of course, for good or for ill, I've already seen through a lot of this stuff just yesterday, so it is very fresh. So we'll see how that goes. So I'd be interested if I could hear back my other stream to see kind of what is different, what I end up focusing on this time versus the other time. I'm like I said, I have 2 hours, but I want to try to get through at least most of the player-facing stuff in this one. I'll see if that's possible. So I might brush over some things, depending. I know yesterday I had some kind of, I don't want to say issues, but there were some things in the layout I thought maybe just weren't. Everyone has different ideas. Everyone different things they like. I don't know if I'll, I don't know if I'll get into that stuff this time, which is maybe good or bad. But let's get into it and let's see what we got. So here we got the nice cover with some cool, looks like a kind of, I don't know, we're looking at like a zodiac. Or maybe not like a zodiac, but it is a zodiac. But anyway, let's get in. All right, back cover, little map. All right, I'm just going to breeze through a couple of these. So I do want to know what is, this I think are important. What is the Elthos RPG? You want to be able to, if again, you're picking this up in a bookstore and you only have a few minutes to kind of flip through it. You want to have a little blurb and say, hey, what is this? What am I looking at, right? What are these rules? And should I, let me just move that over a little bit. Should I care or not, right? So let's see what he has to say about his rules. Elthos RPG is a game of imagination and adventure, okay? Uses a highly distilled mini system mechanic and tiny numbers math. All right, so these sound kind of like buzzwords. Um, they're not meaningful to me at this moment. I mean, I can guess what tiny numbers math is, um, but I don't know exactly, and I'm not sure exactly what a mini system mechanic is. But hopefully, that will be explained, or it will become clear what he means by a mini system. Here we go. Intent: to allow the game master to focus on the creative aspects of the game, such as creating worlds, campaigns, adventures, plots, characters, development, so forth. If you are a creative thinker, Elthos is made for you. All right, that's good. All right, the core rules of the starting book. Okay, it's fantasy oriented. Here we go. The core mechanic resolves around a single general resolution matrix. All right, so I guess this is what we're going to get into what he meant by tiny numbers math right here. So instead of using a large number of charts to handle individual circumstances, you use GRM chart to handle an infinite, or use the one GRM chart to handle an infinite number of possible circumstances based on difficulty versus skill. I actually have a system that I've been tooling around with the last few years. It's kind of similar to this. Again, remembering what's yesterday, I'll just for giggles, I can get into the differences once we get in there. But it's always interesting when you see different people working on similar ideas. This default, okay, hold on. Oh, one six-sided die. Yeah, see, mine uses two six-sided dice. Resolve all skill-based actions in the game. Okay, the default rules configuration is called the one die system. All right, and then there's also an optional dice system. Okay. All right, so he says it's designed to keep number crunching required at play minimal as possible. Okay, I can dig it. Okay, there's Mythos Machine is the online component, which I'm going to do a dedicated video on, or videos, so we will get to that later. And then, who is it for? This is for game masters who want to create their own RPG worlds using a medium, lightweight, easy to run, yet traditional RPG. That's a bit of a mouthful. I'm not sure what medium light is. I said this yesterday. I kind of wish that there was a way to scale it. Let's say third edition, right? How do you feel about third edition? Is that heavy as far as weight? Is that medium, or is that light? I mean, I don't know. I don't know if I can imagine people thinking 3 or 3.x is being light, but maybe they're out there. But, medium light, I'm not quite sure where on the spectrum, if, say, as far as D&D type systems, if, I don't know, OSR kind of D&D, whether it's BX or one of the retro clones, is kind of light. And medium is maybe 5th edition, and heavy is 3.x/Pathfinder. I don't know. It would be nice to know, because otherwise medium light, it's sort of like telling me a coffee is medium roasted. That means a whole lot of different things to a whole lot of different people. But we'll see. We'll get in there and we'll check it out. Okay. How the book is organized. All right. A brief history. All right, I'll skip that. Let's see. Summary. All right. It's flexible, simplifies, genre-neutral system. All right. So just on the genre-neutral stuff, that's another one. I guess it's not really genre-neutral. I think it's tends towards fantasy as a genre, but I think maybe saying it's settings neutral, that there's not going to be a Forgotten Realms or a Greyhawk or, whatever. And you could tell me, let me know, what, if you think that's good or bad. I find it, maybe it's a mixed, because when your system, you're totally settings neutral, it can make the rules read a little bit dry. There's always some kind of setting, right? There's always something that you're looking at, something that you're basing your rule interpretations on. So, in D&D, we look at it, well, how is magic done? That Vancian magic says something about an assumed setting. Even if the rules itself don't mention a setting, we already have some idea of what their assumed setting is, which is it uses Vancian magic. Even stuff like, oh, what's the name of this guy? Oh, this is Otto's Irresistible Dance. Okay, there's a guy named Otto. That tells us something about the rules. So so there's always usually some kind of setting, even if it's just as far as what the races are, right? There's so much competition in rules that I almost wonder if it's not better to have some kind of setting attached to it, just because the setting gives you a way to hook a reader in a way that just the rules mechanics, unless they really just blow someone's mind and they really speak directly into their cerebral cortex, you might not be able to get, because it's just rules. Whereas when you throw a setting in there, that may fire off imaginations. A Conan RPG probably doesn't sell that many people on the rules mechanically, right? But you hope that the rules, but it's the setting that maybe fires the imagination, and you get in there and you can look at the rules to see how they support that setting. So it's an interesting choice. The classic kind of settings free one I remember is always kind of GURPS, which I had back in the day. I haven't read through any current GURPS, but I used to be a lot of GURPS, and it to me struck me as pretty settings neutral. I was also, I guess that would be, a fairly crunchy one too. But all right, let's get through. All right, some pictures. All right, the ODS philosophy. So remember, one die system. And Game Master's mini guide. All right, so we're getting the Game Master stuff first. One die system is the default dice mechanic. Tiny numbers math, okay. To get the hang of it, try combating a pair of first level fighters and change one to second level and try again. Then try changing one strength to +1. Yeah, see this, I remember thinking, yeah, this to me is a little bit out of place because I don't know anything about the system yet. And it's asking me to go and start doing things that they haven't explained, which is kind of one of my pet peeves a little bit about rule books. Just for me personally, I like to see things introduced and explained before you're using them elsewhere. So if you're going to introduce something about, hey, have fighters fight, show me what a fighter is first before you ask me to imagine them fighting. Or, it's particularly in this case because we're imagining how to do it mechanically. Same thing, like you haven't talked about attributes or if they have used a different name for that. And we're already talking about strength and bonuses. And I kind of think for a lot of these games, like I really would like to start with, give me the character sheet, walk me through maybe rolling the dice or what the dice are, maybe dice, then character sheet, then what's on the character sheet, and then onward, just because then I can I could fill things in as I go if I'm creating a character, or even if I'm a GM, excuse me, and it's good to know what that process is. And then I feel like I'm getting a thing. So I'm getting everything in an order where I get introduced to it, and then we kind of put it to use. Whereas in this case, we're sort of jumping to as if we've been introduced to the stuff which we haven't yet and how to use it. So I'm going to kind of go by here first, and hopefully it'll become clear afterwards. Now they're going to, okay, dice and stories. Some GMs feel that dice, okay, this is basically the GM's fiat versus, kind of story-driven versus maybe a sandbox, letting the dice decide, right? Let's see what he says. Some GMs feel that if the dice and the story come in conflict, that the story wins, so the GM can ignore the dice via GM's fiat in order to avoid disastrous story outcomes, such as hero fumbling a simple action and dying as a result. It looks like a little typo there. Alternatively, some GMs prefer to play things out strictly as the dice dictate, regardless of the story consequences. There are trade-offs. Okay, so just saying that he's broadly dividing things up in kind of two sorts of GMs, saying where he kind of falls in. Personally, that's okay. I mean, I'm not sure it's good to know. I don't know. I mean, it'd be interesting more to know where these rules fall than maybe what he prefers. But maybe, I guess he's trying to give you a little bit of guidance on, hey, here's how I like to do it. It's a bit of a balancing act, but I'd rather not try to influence the outcome for the sake of the story. This allows for fate, for destiny to rule the world. Yeah, I would tend to agree with that. And I feel encourages the smart play, capital S, capital P. Nevertheless, if an outcome is really important to your world story, you don't have to roll at all. You can simply say XYZ happens and thus use GM fiat to avoid what might otherwise become a story catastrophe. That's actually a good hint. I'm not sure this is the spot for it, but it's a good piece of advice. If you don't want a range of outcomes, don't roll dice for them, because inevitably, one time or another, you will get one of the outcomes that you don't actually want because you rolled for it. Even if you try to make the roll as improbable as possible. Roll a D100 and only this will happen on a 1. Gonna roll that 1. It's gonna happen. I think everybody has stories of that weird thing happening because they decided to roll for something and they thought they'll just line up everything that they can, and the dice managed to disrupt it. Because if in most rules, critical successes, critical failures mean that no matter how many odds you pack on it, particularly on D20 mechanics, you got a 5% chance of it going super one way or going the super other way. And all those modifiers then go out the window. So something to keep in mind. Game Master adjudication. Okay, Elthos RPG does not try to create an individual rule and or chart for every possible thing. Yep, that's kind of a good OSR sort of principle. Is you're going to have to take this kind of system, this mechanic they have, and you are going to have to apply it to all these different situations that are going to come up. You're not going to find different rules or subsystems for every little thing that you could happen in the game. Right, it provides the general resolution matrix and relies on the GM to make appropriate judgment calls wisely in their role as a referee. Yep. When the rules seem to conflict or a circumstance seems unreasonable, then the GM is at liberty to retrofit the events and circumstances so that they make sense in the context of the world they have in mind. Okay. Retrofit the events and circumstances. I'm not exactly sure what that means, but I mean, I guess it means if there's a conflict between the rules and your setting, go with your setting and amend the rules as needed. I mean, that's how it speaks to me, but it's a little bit unclear there. Thoughts on descriptive narratives. Okay, yeah, this is basically, instead of saying you do 10 points of damage, talk about the amazing descriptive thing you could do, which is harder than it sounds. I think a lot of times we try to make it sound easy to do, but over the course of a combat, it can be difficult to give everybody super descriptive, descriptions, super active, kind of heroic descriptions for things that may not. But yeah, certainly in the example here about killing a goblin, it narrate it so that it feels as meaningful, because it is. And the other thing to do is, I've seen a lot, I've done it sometimes, is you let the player narrate. Hey, you killed this goblin. How did you do it? Let them have fun talking about all the amazing stuff they did. Okay, right there. All right, so let's move on. Retrofitting dice rolls to fit the story. I think that's what he was talking about in that other part. Let's see what he says here. Let's say a character is shooting a bow and they roll a 1 and another 1, thereby fumbling the shot. So we know the result. The question is, how did it happen? What went wrong? When the dice give the result, we can retrofit the outcome with any reason that makes sense in context of the world. I'm not sure what he means by retrofitting. Let's see his example. While aiming, a bit of sand flew into the archer's eye, and his shot went wide because he flinched. I don't know if that's a retrofit. I mean, because the mechanics aren't the thing, right? The mechanics are just they exist in the kind of meta space of playing the game. It's only when you narrate that it's happened. So I don't know if retrofit outfine is the right word, but obviously what he's saying here is, you take the results of the dice and you work it into the fiction, which again is another one of those things that sounds easier sometimes than it is, but it's something you can learn. It's a skill. It's probably, again, I don't know if this is maybe the spot to tell it. It's kind of interesting. He's putting the GM stuff first, but we'll see. I mean, it's not bad advice. It's good advice. Just where it is in the overall book is an interesting choice. Extending the core rules. Okay. Yeah, all right, I'm just going to skip that, not because it's not important, but I want to read the rules. I want to read the core rules before I get into extending them. I guess I kind of feel like this to me is more stuff that should be more in the middle of the book. Give me the core rules and then tell me how to extend them. I don't need to worry about extending them before I've actually gotten to the core rules. Okay, an outline of game mastering techniques, attitude, bounding style, and ownership. Okay, so what are these? Let's see. Over the years, we've seen GMs try a wide variety of different RPG styles, even to the point where some games have done away with the GM altogether. For those who are new, it may help to know the major distinctions, which can be classified as shown in the box to the right. Okay, so these are the attitudes, GMing attitudes, game-oriented. Always let players pay the consequences for their decisions. GM is the opponent, rules focused. Okay, story oriented. Player decisions are really lethal and results advance the story. GM is the narrator, story focused. Sheltered, most things work in players' favor, and the story is kid friendly. GM as guardian. Game oriented, I don't agree with that. This is tough. I mean, everyone's got their one, and I don't know if you can come up. This to me, game oriented seems like there's really a couple one. Mostly I think of the game-oriented ones as the classic, not GM as the opponent, but GM as the referee. You're not supposed to be, you're rooting for the players as a person. Hey, Todd, I want the players to win, but like I'm reffing a basketball game, even if I want Team A to beat Team B, I'm calling it square. If Team A wins, I enjoy that, and that's maybe what the outcome that I most want. But I'm not trying to make that happen. It's up to them to make it happen. I don't think that it is necessarily rules focused in that way, or that you're the opponent. And it's interesting. It says let players pay the consequences. It's interesting wording. I mean, I guess these are good as sort of examples. It seems like there's some room there. I don't know, that it doesn't feel like the full spectrum, and it feels like there's a couple of distinctions being made that I would not make, or not make the way I am. It's interesting. I'm not, I guess these are for newer. If this were a new RPG person, this was their first rule book, or one of their first ones they picked up. It's kind of interesting to do this like this. I'm not sure I agree with them though, but that's okay. It's his take. He's welcome to it. I have my own. Let's see, GM bounding style. Linear. GM determines the plot and works towards a specific outcome to the story. Modular. Players determine the plot within boundaries set by the GM's campaign scenario. Freeform. Players determine the plot and can go anywhere and try to do whatever they wish in the GM's world. Yeah, I mean, modular and freeform to me are fairly similar, because there's always going to be some boundaries set. I mean, I guess you could argue in something like, no, they can go anywhere in the planes, they can leave the planes, they can go through the spheres. I think that for the most part, there is some kind of boundary usually. Maybe the boundary is the planet, maybe the boundary is the planes. There's usually something. So maybe I would look at those two as being more similar than maybe distinct. But yeah, these are good distinctions. I don't know, again, for GMs themselves, does it illuminate anything for them? I don't know if maybe I'm supposed to look at that and see where I believe, but I don't know how that helps me as far as the rules. But I guess it's, again, it's kind of a sidebar take about GMing. Let's see, backstory and character ownership. Here we go. Traditional. GM owns backstory and non-player characters exclusively. Players fully own only the character that they generated. Shared story. GM and players may co-create elements of the backstory. Players own their characters and influence non-player characters. Player-owned story. Players own the backstory and all characters, and the GM's role may be diminished or disregarded. Well, I can't really speak to player-owned story. I don't think I've ever played something like that. I don't know. Traditional, it says GM owns backstory. It's one of those things I don't know exactly what they mean, because I've never had a situation where the GM I've had a backstory. Someone's, GM's asked me for a backstory. I've written one, and then the GM, I don't know, or the GM has handed me a backstory. I don't know what that means by owns. Is it that I write it, but basically it comes under the GM's purview after we start playing? I'm not sure exactly what that means as far as they own it. Does it mean that they create it, or does it mean that I just don't have ownership of it? I don't know. I guess maybe everything I've ever seen has always been in that kind of shared story. Players own their characters, and the influence non-player characters. Is that meaning in a meta sense, like we come to the table and I say I'd like the town sheriff to be like this, and so that happens in the game, or is it influencing as far as what we do in the fiction? It's not clear, but there it is. So these are some ideas on, I guess, on game mastering techniques. He talks a little bit on the other side about player preferences may change over time. Keep an eye on how players feel about the style of game. Yeah, I mean, this is pretty good advice. It's fairly good. Again, I'm just not sure if I want it here, but it's not bad to have. Okay, this is more about the online component, which I'm going to do separately. Here we go. Required equipment for playing the game. See, this is where I would kind of think to put this first. Or at least, if not first, then, maybe after the intro. Because this is really what I want to know. Let's get down to brass tacks, right? We're doing a 6-sided dice. All right, we've got the rule book. Got some pencils, some blank paper. I suppose you could write it with crayons or chalk on concrete if we wanted to, but we'll just use, as they suggest, pencils and black paper. Optional tokens to represent characters. Okay, so let's look at this general resolution matrix. As I said, I have a similar table. I could probably whip mine out from some folder somewhere on my hard drive. Mine was using 2d6. It was more closely. I'm curious where he got his inspiration from for this. I should ask him. Maybe I'll ask him after this video. Maybe I'll throw him a message on Discord. My inspiration was the 1980s TSR Conan and later on Phaser Rip rules. Has sort of it's a bigger table. It used, I think they both used D100 for it, but it had this kind of similar failure, sort of neutral area kind of success. It just had a bigger, particularly the Marvel one had big scale. So let's see what they've got. Okay, general resolution matrix, chance to succeed, GRM root equals 4. Okay, I'm not sure what that means. Root equals 4. All right, attack level or skill level, and then armor class or difficulty level. Now, again, this is the second time I've done this. Yesterday, I had a bit more confusion about this. I believe that the vertical numbers are what you're... No, wait a minute. I think you're rolling, and that's the horizontal roll? No. You're rolling the vertical. Horizontal is your level. So you're supposed to figure out kind of where you fit on this line, the horizontal line. Then you're rolling a die, checking where you come out on the vertical. So your level's 1 in whatever you're trying to do. The difficulty 6. You roll a 6. This is what happens. And in this case, it means that you succeed, but if it's an attack, you're going to be... Essentially, the effect is -3, right? I think that's most... It'll be interesting to see because I don't know. You're picking a lock and you succeed, but the effect is -3. I guess you have to figure out what that means for skills. But I think as far as combat, that would mean that you're doing 3 less damage, right? And so it says here in the little, let's see, the little footnotes of the table. For hit or success, you roll a d6. And the resulting roll needs to be equal to or higher than the CTS value. What is the CTS? See, really, I think they mean that, really, I think because this is really, where it says attack level, skill level, I think that's really the CTS. Because I think ultimately you're going to take actually your skill level minus the difficulty level. I think it's somewhere in there, and I guess he's going to get into it a little bit. If the CTS equals 3, then roll a 3 or higher for success. Okay. Yeah, see, this is confusing me a little bit again. But I believe it's that. So I believe if ultimately I end up on 4, to hit someone that's difficulty level 2, I need to roll 2. And so on and so forth. So higher skill level, and obviously these are positive modifiers. So if I have an attack level of 6, I'm attacking something that's armor class 1. I'm not only going to hit, but I'm going to do an extra 3 damage. And I remember this one where this part of the chart was confusing to me too, but I again, since I went through this once yesterday, I already know that this one, it goes from 2 and this is actually 1. I think they should have split this up somehow because here it reads that it goes from 6 and then these other red ones below 6. Sorry, if we're looking at attack level 1 and we go down to 3, armor class 3 after that, 4, 5, and 6. These are all, the hit numbers are all 6. So you max out at 6 and you go to 6. Here, if we try to use that same logic, you'd think it goes from 2 and then it maxes out at 2, but that's actually not correct. It actually goes down to 1 and then these 3 max at 1. So it's a little, maybe could be made a little bit more clear, but we got to figure it out. So basically, you're going to use an attack level versus a difficulty level. You're going to roll some dice, or you're going to roll a die, and depending on how you do, you're either going to kind of critical success up here, or I guess these are all successes. Sorry, this is like bonus successes. You do, you're strong, you do well. Dude, there's no, that's what I'm thinking. So on mine, mine and Phaser, if you had sort of regular success, critical kind of failure. Here they don't have those different levels of success. They only have the one. It's just whether you get penalized or not on the success. So let's read a little bit as I've muddled my way through that chart now for a couple minutes. Let's actually read what they say about it. The general resolution matrix is used to resolve all questions of success and failure. All right, combat as well as non-combat. The GRM shows that the chance to succeed is found by adding the difference between the armor class and attack level or difficulty versus skill level to the root. Okay, so now we know what the root is. So the root is 4. So this is the value you need to roll. Okay, see, I think the chart is nice because this may be low numbers math, but it's a little bit confusing math. So you're going to take 4. you're going to subtract. All right, hold on. The value you need to roll. Oh wait. Oh, okay. Adding the difference between the armor class and the attack level. So we start at 4. Then we could add the difficulty. So if the difficulty is 2, that would make 6. Then our skill is 4. So 6 minus 4 is 2. Small numbers, but I think this is where the chart helps. So this is a nice chart because doing the math, I'm assuming as if we were to get in here and play it, it would become second nature. But it has that, I think it has that kind of THAC0 thing to it. People, hated or the sort of just negative armor class. People kind of really like or hated the to hit stuff in Classic D. Not hated, but there was a certain segment of people, and enough that they ended up changing it to using all positive numbers. That didn't like the whole adding positive and negative numbers to try to figure out what you need to score to hit something. And this kind of falls in that same thing, where it's low numbers, but you have this kind of dealing with positive, negative numbers and having to add them together is a little bit confusing. But we have the chart. The chart is nice. But then they give us an alternate chart. So this one's the alternate chart, I guess, is closer to the math. But I think I like this chart better. Though I think it could be a little bit clearer. All right, so let's get past the chart. Skill level versus difficulty level. You use the general resolution matrix to answer the question, my character tries to do something. How does it go? All right. Here we're just going through the formula a little bit more. We start by determining the character's skill level and the particular task's difficulty level. Once you know the skill level and difficulty level, you can use the general resolution matrix to find the chance to succeed or quickly calculate the chance to succeed. I don't really like, in this case, I don't like the abbreviation. Just give me chance to succeed. It's not that intuitive to use CTS because I just don't know it. It's a new term for me. By adding the GRM root, yeah, I'm not that keen on that one either, but all right, 4 to the difficulty minus skill level. Yeah, I mean, it is kind of simple. It's a little bit, I think, use the matrix. I would almost just say, you know what, use the matrix until you get really comfortable with the numbers, then mess around with doing it in your head. For combat, the skill level is the attack level, and the difficulty level is the opponent's armor class. All right. So let's get into skills here. So, again, just general layout. We're getting into skills before we've gotten into anything else about characters, which seems a little bit putting the cart before the horse, but let's read about skills. I guess maybe it's here because it pertains to these kind of the mechanic, but I feel like we have the main mechanic here. I would rather get into the character creation and how I get skills and what those skills are, and maybe at that point break the skills down into different ones, but they put it here, so let's see what they have. Primary skills are always used at one level above the current character level, okay? Elective skills start at a skill level 2 at whatever character level they are learned, and then go up 1 skill level for every level the character advances. All right, so these are nice and easy. You don't have to worry about allocating points, but clearly you want to, if you want to invest heavily in elective skill, you want to take it as early as possible because that's when they start leveling up. If you wait till end game to pick up a skill, you're not going to get that much out of it. So it's interesting. I'd be curious if they have any ways to turbo boost that if you want to. I mean, or maybe a way you could fix a mistake. Or I guess at that point you just learn your lesson. But just see, the one thing is you can't do something like, oh, okay, I get 4 skill points, at a level, and I'm just gonna put it in this new one and just let it rip because I really like it. I have to kind of know to take it early so that it keeps bumping up. But maybe there's an alternate way of doing skills. We'll have to see. But it's interesting. Kind of like the idea of primary versus elective skills, just as far as it's kind of like having proficiency or not. Unlearned skills are always used at first level. Okay. Difficulty level types. Assessing the difficulty level is done according to the difficulty level type of the skill. Okay. See, this is, we're sort of in the context of one thing, but not in the context of skills. So it's hard to fully understand what he means by that at this point, but I'm sure we will get to it later. These are outlined as follows. You may optionally elect to use these instead of GM Fiat. Well, I mean, I would hope that we would always use these. While assessing difficulty level types to skills does add a bit of complexity, it also creates a more nuanced game. Okay. As always, you should feel free to keep things as simple or as complex as you wish for. Well, all right, well, how complex is this? Difficulty level types, okay, GM Fiat. All right, helpers. those that are helpful to friends and desired by the affected parties to succeed. That's an okay, so not the clearest thing. Let's see. Okay, we're looking at first aid, medical healing. Okay, so basically things that you're doing to help. I mean, does that include yourself or is it only stuff for friends? But okay. So you're helping. Skills that are aid type skills. This skill is to aid someone else or potentially yourself. Let's see. Now it says method. The skill learning points of the skill is the difficulty level. Well, that went right over my head. I do not know what the skill learning points refer to. And this, again, it's one of those things because we haven't really got into skills in its full definition, or unless this is it, but we haven't really gotten to it. So I don't think we've learned what skill learning points are yet. So I have no idea what that is. So I'll have to just keep that on the back burner, and maybe we'll come back to what that means, skill learning points of the skill. Requisite based. Those whose difficulty depends on one of the affected character's level and their related requisite bonus. See, we haven't actually talked about requisites yet, so I don't like when we bring them in as if we know what this means and we don't know yet. But we're about to find out because he's about to give an example, which is going to let us know that the difficulty level for diplomacy is the opponent's character level plus wisdom bonus. So, reading between the lines of context, okay, he's calling attributes requisites, but that hasn't been actually said anywhere unless I've skimmed past it. So I kind of wish we would have introduced what the attributes / requisites are before we start talking about them in this way. But it's a quibble. It's just my quibble. Combat, we've kind of covered. Player gambit. All right, I like the sound of that. Variable usage. The player may determine the difficulty level as a measure of the focus of their character's effort. Okay. That's interesting, but I just don't know what it means yet. To use this, the player set difficulty level is compared to the character skill level on the GRM to find the chance to succeed. Rolling above that value indicates success. All right. Then the difficulty level is used as the effectiveness instead of rolling an additional die and is used as the base number of experience points gained if the effort is successful. Whew. All right, that's a mouthful. Let's see if the example here illuminates this a bit more. A player sets a DL of 4 for using medical healing, with which her character skill level is 3. On the GRM, we find 4. So let me see if I can do this math in my head. So it's 4 plus the difficulty level says is 4. That's 8. Then her skill level is 3, so we subtract 3, so it should be 5. So let's see if I'm right. She must roll a 5. All right, so there you go. Small numbers math is fairly easy. 5 or better to succeed. She rolls a 5, and so the medical healing delivers 5 points of healing to the patient. Okay, I like this. That's really cool, but it's not worded particularly well. The example makes it so much clearer than that text. That text could probably use another editing run, but I like the idea. So you want to go in first aid, you can go big. I'd like to know a little bit about penalty. So in this case of first aid, right? It's an interesting case. My character wants to heal that character. In this case, it seems like there's no downside to going for the biggest possible number you can. I'd like to know a little bit more, and maybe we're just left up to the GM to see how they do it. Do I just go 6 so that she heals 6? What happens if I don't make it? How much time does it pass? Can I just keep rolling till I get a 6? Does it have a negative effect? I'd like to know. Like if I do healing and I go for a high number and I don't get it, does maybe then it's 6 minus my skills 3, and so they take 3 damage. I mean, that would be one way to do it, maybe in my kind of homebrew way. But it would be nice to know if there was some guidance as to failed gambits, because it is a cool thing. I like that kind of idea that you can actually shoot your own, shoot for your own skill. How high do you want to aim? But I'd like some. There should be. I don't think it should be free. I think there should be some. Give it a little more complexity as far as is it worth doing or not? Because give some failure guidance there. All right, notes. All right, I'll skip over the notes for right now. Okay, character generation. Here we go. All right, select the race. And let's see. Just here we have the list of races, but only the shaded ones are kind of your basic player character races. The rest are there, I guess, for just to have. I guess it's kind of a little mini monster manual, or just for reference, because it's an interesting whole bunch of animals and things there, from kobolds to horses to wolves to skeletons to vampires and dragons. Um, Here we have, let's see, so we have on the top, it says min max for, I guess, 3 different requisites. Are these the only 3? Again, this is one of the things I would like to have gotten a list of requisites before we start using them in a table, particularly when they're given in abbreviated form. Obviously, as someone who's played and read tons of fantasy role-playing game rule books, I know that ST is most likely strength, and Wiz is wisdom, and DX is dexterity. But if I hadn't, these might be totally meaningless to me. I'll be interested to see if he gets into what the min and maxes are. Is that something that's just for NPCs? Is it for players? Maybe I should read through the text first and then hit the table. So let's do that. Okay, myriad of possible races. I've only included a few in this book that might be considered typical. Okay. You can and should create your own races. That's nice guidance. I think that gets overlooked a lot. And by the way, in the very, very original rules that Gary Gygax said the same thing. You know, players should be able to play anything you want. You just make it work as far as character advancement, and you do it. And there were players who played in his personal game who played as Balrogs and all kinds of stuff. So it was never meant to be limited just to the player character races. Those were basically just supposed to be the most common kind of, in ye old generic fantasy world. Each character created in your world should first be identified as a member of a specific race. Specific race. I wish we could ditch the label of race. I know it's kind of classic, but I don't know. Species, people, I don't know. Something else. Something that has less problematic real world baggage. Okay, the following list shows the races by typical level. I'm not sure what that means. Maybe if they're NPCs, that's the level they usually are. Min and max requisites of strength, wisdom, and dex movement points, and includes a few simple notes regarding their particular attributes. Okay, so does that mean that those apply to player characters or not? The levels shown should be considered typical and not necessarily pertain to player characters. Okay, but what about those requisites? The GM should consider the list flexible, all right? Those added with an asterisk, those shaded with an asterisk, are races player characters are allowed to choose. So, okay, so the ones that they're saying are allowing, at least, obviously we could open it up. You want to play a horse? It's right there. But humans, dwarves, elves, and halflings, dwarves, and elves with kind of an alternate spelling. All right, I'm okay with that. Let's see. Races are an important foundation. Sure they are. All right, we don't know yet what... Okay, so they've mentioned these minimum maximums, but they haven't said if they apply to player characters or not. All right, so now we're going to generate those requisites, attributes. I guess it's interesting that he's having you pick the class first. I mean, pick your race first and then roll your stats. Whereas usually I've always seen it rolling stats and then picking the race. But I guess that's, the standard D&D model is each race has bonuses and stuff. So you want to roll your stats, kind of get an idea of what you want to do. And then, people generally pick the race that fits their stats or helps them with the stats they want the best. It's a little bit different. All right, let's see. Okay. So we're rolling D6s. Character on a scale of 1 to 6. All right, so here are the actual requisites. I maybe would have bolded these. They pop out a little bit more on the page. Strength indicates physical power and health. So he's combined, classic strength and constitution into just strength. Wisdom controls intellect and insight. So he's taken wisdom and intelligence and merged them together into his wisdom stat. Let's see. Okay, and it's also the spell casting, or I think it says mystical ability stat, while dexterity covers the character's nimbleness. Okay, so dex is dex. Dex is the same. There's no charisma type stat that I can see. All right, that's fine. All right, strength and health. And okay, so it looks like the requisites all have the same bonuses or penalties depending on your score. And they just have boxed, same thing as what I just read through. Okay, so I guess so I was looking at the paragraph, so it does have it bolded in that box. That's good, because those are things that are really important. You want it to pop off the page. Maybe I would even maybe give it a different treatment, put it up there just so it's super in your face because it's so important, but they're there. All right, now it gives the generation methods. You can random roll, you can assign, you can allocate. All right. All good. There's a little kind of cool little map. Now we're selecting our adventure class. Okay. Based on their requisites, the player can choose their class. Multi-class combinations are possible so long as their requisites fit. All right. If nothing else works, they can be a freeman, which offers the ability to select skills from all classes, but at double cost. All right, that's cool. I like that. I definitely like the idea that I could, if I think it used to be, fighter was pretty much, or if you, I guess depending on the version, either fighter or rogue was kind of the fallback class. I think if you were depending on what version you're playing, if you weren't playing racist class, either rogues or fighters were kind of the fallback, right? Anybody can do. So here they have one that seems to be kind of designed for that. And here we have these experience level charts. Oh, let's see. Hold on the side first. The 4 cardinal classes: thief, fighter, spell chanter, and cleric. All right, that's pretty cool. And then they have underneath the freeman. Okay, so here they have their. Okay, so a thief has to have at least 4 dex. Fighter has to have at least 3 strength. Mage, so what they're calling a spell chanter, must have at least 4 dex and 4 wisdom. The cleric must have 3 dex and 5 wisdom. Wow. That those seem interesting, because basically, I mean, you got 6 attributes. I guess the way you're not rolling them down the line, so to speak. So chances are you're going to have at least a 4, or 3 or 4 in something, and you can then shift those around, either be a thief or a fighter. And obviously, the freeman has no requisite requirements. It's interesting that the chanter and the cleric have 2, so they're almost more like the sort of compound races. I mean, compound classes like the paladin, where you used to have, or the bard, where you had to have 2 or 3 different attributes of a certain level, or multi-classing themselves. So that's an interesting choice. Certainly means that the pool in a party, unless people roll really well, of those are going to be rather smaller than the fighters, thieves, and the freemen. Here we have a experience level chart. So it looks like they're going with variable experience levels for each class, which I like. I don't like in 5th edition how everything has to fit. It just means that you don't have to balance things exactly level to level, because you can tweak your experience level requirements to kind of balance things that way, which I think is a little bit easier to do and a little bit less limiting than having to worry that at every single level, every single class is balanced. The interesting thing here is looking at level 2. For a thief, it's 20. Fighter, 20. Spellchanter, 30. Okay, cleric, 30. Freeman, 40. And then a fighter thief is still 30. And only a fighter cleric thief is 50. So that seems hard on the freeman. Then getting down to level 12, their experience requirement, man, it's like 10,000 more than anyone else's but the fighter cleric thief. That seems harsh. That's an interesting choice, because Freeman is the class that you fall into when your attributes stink. Your attributes stink, and maybe you're playing it, and you're just like, you know what, I'm not gonna re-roll until I get something. I'm just gonna do a Freeman, and then it's like you're penalized a second time on this chart. That's a really interesting decision. It just seems, it kind of boggles my mind that you could playing a fighter thief, and you level up faster than the Freeman. A really interesting choice, and I might ask the author about that. Just because I'm really curious about that. It seems a bit backwards. I would think Freeman would be the cheapest. Going back to sort of the classic classes, thief and fighter were kind of the cheapest classes to level up, because they didn't have a lot to them, and their requirements were low. And then the people who, it's like you're kind of stacking benefit on benefit. If you are able to qualify for a fighter thief, that means you have a 3 strength and a 4 dex. If you're a spell chanter, it means you have a 4 dex and a 4 wisdom. If you have all that going for you, do you need, and then you have someone else who's got kind of stinky requisites, why penalize them further by giving them a higher experience tax? It just seems a little bit rough. So I'm interested to know the reasoning behind that, and maybe I will ask. All right, we got levels with titles. I always like titles. I think they're fun. I like to throw them out there and play when I've got them. When you get to a certain level and you get to say, I'm a veteran, or people recognize you as a veteran, that's cool. I think it makes you feel good. It gives it more sense of achievement for leveling up than just you're a fourth level blah blah blah. Okay, this chart. All right, let's skip here. All right, heritage and starting money. Okay, that's interesting. So you got peasant through sovereign. Warrior in the middle there's kind of interesting. It's between craftsman and aristocrat. I guess they mean kind of a knight or some kind of warrior. I don't know. It's interesting that just that these other ones kind of are more social. Then you throw wham warrior in there. Um, you get some monies. All right. You could end up with 600. Interesting that it looks. I guess it's just a little blurb here, so they don't really tell you what it means. If you have the heritage of a sovereign, does that mean your family is actively, at the head of a nation state? Because that kind of changes the game a lot. Or does it just mean that maybe it's in your past, like you have a good name, but you're from the gutter like everybody else? Because there are really some big role-playing situations. It really changes the landscape if you have someone who's a royal and a bunch of peasants. And maybe getting some guidance there would be interesting, but maybe they'll cover that later. It seems like right now it's just about money. Okay, learning skills. Here we go. Skills and mystic powers are learned by spending skill learning points and mystic learning points. Okay. If the character is a mystic class. All right. Learning points are granted when the character achieves a new level, each new level. Learning points required for each skill or mystic power is indicative of how difficult the skill or power is to learn. So, okay, so you can buy more skill. I think that was a question I had back when they were saying that elective skills come in at level 2. So it seems like you first get them in level 2 and then you can bump them up, which is nice. So if you're holding on to skill points, and I don't know if you can hold them on from level to level or whatnot, but if you find a skill you really like and you get it late in your adventure and career, you can still power it up using some skill points. Question answered. But again, this is something that, if they'd put all the skill stuff together, like put all that stuff here, it would have been self-explanatory, whereas the way it's laid out, it kind of gives me that question, or it had me having questions that I had to hold on to. All right, okay, so primary skills. Let's see a note on alignments. All right, I'm not going to go into alignments. I think he says here that he's working on alignment stuff that's not ready, or it's not in here yet. I'm actually a fan of alignments. I think they get a bad rap a lot of the time. I think there may be different ways to do it. I feel like, and I've heard different people say it, this, and I totally agree with it, that I think a lot of players, they just don't like, they just want to do what they want to do when they want to do it. Whereas I think that having some kind of guidelines for your character is good. Having some rules that you want to follow. It doesn't have to be in alignment form. I think having some kind of code, whatever you want, pirate code, knight's code, the old code, whatever code you want, but that you follow it. You believe in it, so you should follow it. And that kind of, that adds tension. People talk about cinematic stuff all the time. Well, you know what? Cinematic is when you have a conflict between what you want to do and your code. Whether you're Batman, whether you're Spider-Man, you're Superman, whatever heroes you can think of, they often, almost always, have some kind of code. And a lot of the central tensions in their stories come from the conflicts between their code and the world. And, so that's a good tool. It's not a bad thing. It's a good thing. But it often gets a bad rap. I mean, I know alignments, just because they, I think that the biggest thing is they don't get defined in a way that everybody's on the same page. I think that's the biggest issue. I think if you could define everything together, you can make it work. But I'd be happy with something else, like I said, some kind of code system. Pendragon kind of has some things like that with some interesting ways that they do things. But anyway, different game. Let's get back to this. Okay, skill learning points based on your level. Okay, again, this is interesting. So we have character level here, and then we have how many classes you have. The more classes you have, the more skill points you get. I don't know if I like that. I don't know. I'll have to make a character. Maybe I'll make a character between now and the next one, or maybe I'll do it on the next one. I'll make a character because it's just interesting, the decision. Because I like to think that, hey, if you specialize, you should get, I feel like you should be rewarded for specializing. Whereas this system seems to be set up that a lot of it is you're rewarded for branching out. There's very little XP penalty for taking 2 classes over 1. Here you're going to get more skill level points. So it really feels like it's pushing you. To me, I'm saying if I want to just push, be more optimal, power game here a little bit, then I should not stick with one class. I should branch out. So I'd like to see more of, I like just myself encouraging people to kind of or at least be happy with the class and not feel like they have to have envy for people who had more than the classes. And again, because it comes back to whatever you rolled or whatever you got in that first requisite things, it can be a little bit like, the rich get richer and the poor stay poor. All right, then we got Mystic Learning Points. Okay. The guild class system. I don't know what that is. What is the guild class system? Is that these classes? Is there an adventuring class called their guild class? I don't know what that means. All right, so they haven't really introduced that, but there it is. If guilds don't have an official genre, or you just don't like the idea, consider providing an alternate means by which characters learn their skills. So it seems like they're talking about classes as guilds. Okay. I don't know what that means exactly. Let's skip it. Maybe I'll ask them about guilds too. I don't know if that's just synonymous with your class. Again, it's one of those things that, right, we're settings free, but here he's talking about guilds, which is a settings driven kind of thing. It's a fictional thing. So is he saying here that each one of these classes has some kind of fictional structure around it? We think of thieves guilds, but are we saying here that there are thieves guilds and fighters guilds and cleric guilds and everything else guilds, or not? So you mention it, even though we're generic, but there is flavor being purposefully or not imparted in the rules. Let's see here. All right, so moving right along. Skill description, it's examples. All right. Light weapons. We got the old backstabby. Backstabbing can only be used when the attacker is directly behind the defender, which gives an automatic +2. Backstabbing adds an additional +1. Thank you, Alexa. Yeah, now you do that again. All right. To that, and then does an additional 1d6 plus character level damage on a successful hit. On a critical hit, I think I skipped. I think I meant over that. Critical hits, I think, are 6s, and critical failures are 1s. I think that's just set. So not altogether different from d20, but obviously better odds since you have a 1 in 6 chance versus a 1 in 20 chance. Okay. Ranged weapons. All right. Stealth. Uncanny ability to move silently and unhindered through enemy zones of control. Okay, well, we haven't talked about zones of control, but all right. Got capitalized too, so I wonder if that's going to have a technical definition as opposed to just being a term. Could be quite formidable. All right. Used in conjunction with backstabbing. Okay, we got picking pockets, swimming, gambling, horsemanship, feat, salmon leaping. Well, that's an interesting one. All right, this one says it's a helper. Excuse me. The ability to leap 20 feet in a single bound in any direction and land in a ready position for combat. All right, that's not quite what I think of when I think of a salmon leaping, but it's cool. So that's a helper, but it's just for you. Excuse me. But, it is magic, though. The feat costs 2 mystic points per use. So it's kind of a magical ability. All right. Helper. So it's a self-helper. Oh, self-helper. It does cost magic, but it's not. I guess it's the old D&D term would be it's a spell-like ability, I guess. Spell-like skill. And then we have Kung Fu, Iron Fists. I'm down with the Iron Fists. Let's see. Okay, take the Kung Fu Iron Fist weapon. All right. Hold on, let me read the whole thing. DL type combat. Description, DL type. Okay, it's a combat ability. All right, learning this skill allows the character to take the Kung Fu Iron Fist weapon. Okay, I don't know what that means. Which gives fists +1 attack level and adds 1d6 +1 damage. Characters can add +1 attack level and or +1 damage. This attack for every 2 MP mystic points. Chi is added. Okay, this is for monks. They haven't talked about a monk ability, but I want to say, because I saw it yesterday, that monks are fighter clerics. Fighter cleric combo class, but a combo class. I don't know, did they mention it back here in the classes at all? You can I don't know. I know it says it somewhere, but it's one of the things that's not really talked about, and then they kind of throw it out there. Also, the whole chi. It's interesting. So I guess as a fighter, you might still have a use for your mystic points if you have them, which I guess is cool. I'm not. I guess I know it's cool, but I think maybe a little clarity there. I don't know what the Kung Fu Iron Fist weapon. I don't know what that means, but all right. Here we go. Okay, this is just skills. Thief, fighter, spell chanter, cleric, costs money. Okay. I think here's where it says, you see here, combination skills. Okay, so Y are primary skills. E are elective skills. N are prohibited. C, you have to have more than one class. Require the combination of classes with the C. So to take Kung Fu Iron Fist, you have to have fighter, you have to have cleric, and here they're going to tell you they call it a monk. See, that's just one of those things, just as a pet peeve. You should not mention the monk name before you've actually told us what a monk means. And they could have easily did that on that other page saying fighter clerics are called monks, or given us a little monk parentheses fighter cleric combo class. It's a little bit, I feel like you could use the extra editing pass. Get it clear. Don't have me asking kind of questions like what is a monk, and then I got to look in the footnotes of a table to find it. Oh, it's a cool kind of image, but all right. So we got some skills, and we've got armor class. I got some armors. I don't know, this seems standard enough. Character weapons also standard. Looks like I just want to see the damage. Looks like everything is 1d6 except for sword. Magic swords do 2d6. Okay. Calculate attack levels. I think we could figure that out. I'm going to skip. Let's skip through the equipment naming and placing. All right, Mystic attack level and Mystic armor class. Okay, so I guess if you, kind of seems like it almost follows that psionic model where you have kind of psionic defense and psionic attack. That's cool. Okay, narrative versus tactical combat. So here we get into combat and skill use. So, so we've read through the kind of GM facing stuff at the front. We've gone through, at least looked at how to make characters. So now we're going to learn. So I have about an hour left, and here we're at combat and skill usage. Narrative versus tactical combat. Elthos combat can be played descriptively or tactically, depending on your preference. All right. The tactical combat rules are used with combat maps. All right, so you old battle map. All right, so basically theater of the mind. I'm not sure why he didn't just use theater of the mind instead of descriptively. It's a term that most people know as far as talking about RPGs, so I'm not sure coming up with a different term is necessary, but we understand what he means. Characters gain experience points when they are successful in the use of skills and powers, okay, as well as for efforts that GM may decide are worthy of reward. All right, makes sense. The amount of experience earned for skill successes varies. For primary skills is the difficulty level multiplied by the experience gains multiplier. All right, well, they haven't explained that yet, so hopefully they will below. For elective skills, the experience gain is equal to the difficulty level. Okay. For unlearned skills with which success is considered pure luck, it is the difficulty level divided by 2. Round up. All right. So if you're using your primary skills, you're going to get the most bang for your buck. If you use the skills you may have picked up that aren't part of your class, you get sort of medium experience, and you get reduced experience for those you have no experience with. All right. Let's see. The successful use of non-combat mystical powers earns XP as primary skills for mystics. Excuse me. All right. The default EGM equals 5. What is EGM? Oh, that's that experience gains multiplier. But it can be adjusted to moderate the rate of advancement. Okay, so basically the GM's just going to set that. I almost feel like you should give it a bell curve and just have that out. Then maybe at low levels you get a bunch of that multiplier goes up, and maybe it goes kind of peaks and then goes down a little bit as you go. I don't know. I guess you could do it. I guess they're leaving it up to you how you do it. Again, it might be some guidance to see if they just supposed to just keep it flat 5 the whole time or what. It's kind of one of those things that making it modular like that makes this a little bit wordy and less clear. Just as far as that, just telling, if you just said, hey, if it's your primary skill, it's your difficulty level times 5, that's super easy. yes, it's modular by calling it, by calling experience gains multiplier, you've now given it a name that you can now come back and kind of redefine like it's a variable in a math equation, but it also makes it a little bit less easy to read. And I don't know what the benefit is of that necessarily. You maybe could have done that a different way to make it a little bit clearer, but ultimately, okay. So you're going to get the most bang for your buck using your primary skills, and then it kind of scales down from there. Combat experience is earned when opponent is defeated, and is calculated by dividing the vanquished character's level by the victor's level and multiplying that by the EGM. All right. Dividing the vanquished character's level by the victor's level. So you're going to get more by defeating things that are at least your level. Is that in addition to primary skills? Because I feel like you're going to use your primary skills in combat a bunch. Does each one of those get you experience? Or is combat just supposed to be... So that's where maybe he's going to say it down here, because that's a little bit like, am I going to have to keep tick marks on a page for how many skills you use during combat each round to try to figure that out? Or do I just go with the combat modifier? Though if you just use combat experience, it seems like a much lower number than if you do each of the primary skills. So let's keep reading, because I would like some guidance on that. Okay, to get the result of a group combat, you simply add all the character levels on both sides, divide the vanquished by the victors, and multiply the result. All right, this gives you the value to be applied to all members of the victorious group. Yeah, the purpose of dividing is to reward more experience for greater challenges and less for easier victories. I get it. Each party member is awarded the same amount of experience on the theory that combat is a team effort. In theory, if you have an alternate method for calculating or granting experience that works for you, feel free to use it. That's all right. Good. Okay. Special cases might constitute any situation in which the normal amount of experience gained seems insufficient or excessive. All right. Good to know. The solo combat rule is designed to reward bravery and heroism, but sometimes encourages stupidity instead. What is the solo combat rule? Did I miss the solo combat rule? I don't think I did. Okay, I don't know what the solo combat rule is. Some GMs tend to fall into the rewards trap, in quotes, where they feel compelled to overly reward characters in a bid to keep them coming back. Yep, this results in a well-known problem of game inflation. This happens when the GM hands out more and more rewards, such as gold, experience, and magic items. The characters subsequently become overpowered, with their foes getting ramped up accordingly in order to keep things interesting. Yep, this is good add voice, because this does often happen. I almost feel like it could be highlighted a bit more. Let's see. Characters overpowered. This can easily devolve into utter chaos, or worse, become boring for the players. I agree. Therefore, try to be sparing with rewards generally, and let your fascinating world and intriguing story keep the players coming back. That's good advice. I like that. Death and damage below 0. Here we go. Now we're talking. Combat damage is taken from the character's life points when they are hit by physical weapons. Did we? Maybe I skipped life. Maybe I must have missed life points, but I'm guessing it's some number of d6. Okay. When they fall to 0 or below, they are considered incapacitated to varying degrees, depending on how far below 0 they fall. Beyond -4, they are mortally wounded. However, it is still possible to heal characters before they reach -10. This system is designed to mitigate, to some degree, the starkness of the one-die system by providing a buffer between the player characters, and their ultimate fate, capital U, capital F. Any character driven below -20 mystic points, mystic points or life points? I think that might be a typo. It's considered so dead that even mystic powers cannot bring them back. Okay. I think they mean life points there, not mystic points. Successful mystic attacks typically reduce... okay, never mind. Maybe not. So this is where the order of things is a little bit makes things more confusing maybe than they could be. Successful mystical attacks typically reduce only the mystic points of the victim rather than life points. Very few mystic powers cause actual physical effects. I think that's pretty interesting. Again, I think it mirrors psychic combat. This seems very much like a psionics type magic system, which again says something about the setting. Even though there's no setting here, we are getting some details of a hypothetical setting: guilds, psionic style magic, etc. Where I lost my place for a minute. Very few mystic powers cause actual physical effects, as combat-oriented mystic powers are usually mental assaults that seem real to the victims, but are actually hallucinations causing psychic rather than physical damage. Okay, and then there's an example. That said, you can, of course, create mystic powers as you wish. Oh, thank you. The chart below shows what happens as characters are driven below 0 life or mystic points. Okay. -4 to -10, mortally wounded. Unconscious, can't speak. All right. I like that. I mean, I like having some below 0 sort of temporary negative effects. Recuperating and channeling. All right, what's channeling? Recuperation of life. Maybe that's how you get mystic points back. Occurs at a rate of 10% of the character's life at mystic points per character level per night. That's a little, we're talking about low numbers math, but then we have to do percentages. So if I am level 3 and I had 10 life points, that's 1 life point times 3 is 3 per night. Yeah, I don't know. I guess it's not super big math, but maybe there's a little bit better way to do that. But okay, 10%. It's so low number math, but it is a bit mathy. There are skills, spells, and miracles that can heal or life points, restore mystic points. Cool. Dire emergencies. Here we go. In dire emergencies, when below 0 life points, all characters can channel their mystic points into their life points at a rate of 1 life point per 3 mystic points. I like that. This gives non-mystic classes at least 1 use for their mystic energy when they need it. I think that's very cool. Everybody has this mystic points. You can convert them to life points in dire emergency. You have to have gone down to 0. So you can't do it. It'd be interesting if you could do it during a fight. Like, I would love a fighter ability where you could do that and not have to wait till below 0. Because it seems like a neat thing, kind of a way of sort of hulking up a little bit. But I do really appreciate that since everybody has life points and mystic points, and you're aware that there's some classes for which mystic points don't do much at all, that here you have a use for them. And even if you have a use for them, maybe you want to hold some of your mystic points in reserve just in case you need them to keep yourself alive. So I dig that very much. I lost my spot there for a second. Okay. Mystic skills and heroic feats. All right. So now in the examples of feats, we had a feat, but he hadn't described what a feat was yet. So here we're going to get that. And here it is. Kung Fu and heroic feats. Mystical skills, which can use mystic points to augment the skill level. Effect, range, duration, or other aspects depending on the skill, which, again, it gives you, as you're a martial character, gives you a reason to have some mystic points in the bank, both for healing and then for some of these extra feats. Combat-oriented mystic skills that allow characters to add mystic points to damage. The default is 1 damage per 2 mystic points. For non-combat and helper skills, the bonus rate is usually 1 duration or 1 range per 1. Okay. The maximum number of bonus mystic points that can be added to any skill is the character's level. All right, so at first level, you can only add 1, but it goes up. All right. Let's see. The default cost in mystic points to activate a mystical skill is the skill's SLP. What's SLP? I don't know. If the cost is higher than the amount of MP the character has remaining. Okay, hold on. The default cost in mystic points to activate a mystical skill is the skill's something. If that cost is higher, the skill's X. If that cost is higher than the amount of mystic points the character has remaining, then the mystic skill cannot be used effectively. So you just, okay, so it's basically saying you need to have enough points to do it. Probably could have been made more clearly, and I can't remember seeing what SLP means. Maybe I missed it in the skill descriptions, but my suggestion here for a second, or if there's going to be an updated version, is to maybe cut back on the abbreviations because they're just not widely known enough terms, at least to me, to get comfortable on, at least especially on a first read, to get some of these, because SLP is just, I'm blanking trying to remember what that is. Oh, losing experience. Okay. Under some unusually dreadful circumstances, the characters may lose experience points. For example, there are certain horrible beings of darkness. All right, so negative level kind of thing. So he's bringing back negative levels. All right. I'm not going to go into the tactical combat, I think. First sighting, initiative, movement, terrain. These all seem cool. First sighting initiative. This is used once per encounter. Okay, so you're rolling for initiative. So these are optional. Okay. Wow. So this is kind of getting into real sort of hex style combat on the board. Getting into that. All right. Seems interesting. Maybe I'll have to run a combat example at some point. I can get into those. Here we have zones of control, which is mentioned earlier, so I'd like to kind of get an idea of what this is. Zone of control occupies the spaces around a given character in combat. It is an optional yet significant movement accounting method for use on combat maps. I'm guessing this is so you can do attacks of opportunity, which I'm not a fan of. I've said this before on record. I'm not a fan of opportunity attacks. Purpose of zone of control rules to prevent a normal combatant who is facing an opponent simply run around behind them to gain an advantageous. Yes, I mean that is true, right? If you don't have something like a attack of opportunity, there's nothing to stop somebody from running around to the back, except of course that this is where you are tactically on the battlefield then matters a lot. If you put yourself in the middle of a room, you're going to get swarmed around. If you put yourself in a doorway or you put yourself against a corner, now it's a lot harder to get around you. Now, if somebody else stands next to you, now that's further blocked off. You're setting your battle lines. You're preventing yourself from being flanked. And I think I like that more than simply allowing free rolls to just stop people. And plus, I think once you add opportunity attacks, the battlefield becomes very static. People just tend to sit because that opportunity cost, regardless of the reality of it, people look at that opportunity cost of getting thwacked as being too high to want to move a lot. So they just stay in the same place. When you take that away, I found that people want to move around more. So I'm not a big fan of that. But I do get that, yes, that could be a problem where you guys like running around each other like lunatics. But that's why you set battle lines. That's why you try to organize so that people can't do that to you. Okay, attack vectors. All right, I'm going to skip by these hardcore movement examples. I like the graphics for that simple. I might have ditched the backgrounds, though, just because it makes it hard to see the hexes on at least the top one. But yeah, they're clear. It's good. Tactical modifiers, combat, magic, and skill. So these are all optional. So what happens if we're not using this? I can't see. This is where they talked about descriptive combat, but it was just a paragraph blurb. It didn't really have any rules attached to it. Now we're into optional combat tactical rules, but we haven't really seen if these are all optional. Where are your core combat rules? But here we have disengaging from combat, subduing, and disarming. I like all those. Mystic powers. Okay. Casting spells and invoking miracles. I guess miracles are the cleric side of the casting, and spells are the spell chanter or magic user side. It doesn't say it, but that's my guess. Okay, creating new. I'm not going to worry about creating new spells at the moment. What is that? Avatars, granting spells or miracles as powers. In some rare and exceptional cases, spells or miracles may be granted to characters as avatar powers. Okay, what is an avatar? All right, so there's something I skipped over the alignment stuff because he mentions that he's still working on stuff there. He's using a point kind of system. Maybe at some point you reach an avatar kind of level. So I'll just skip over that for the minute for now, and I can come back to it later if need be. Mystic items, mana gems, artifacts, and relics. All right. Let's see. When adding new powers. Let's see. Okay, when adding a new power to your world, you assign it a power level, which usually corresponds with the number of dice of effect. All right. The power level is always equal to the mystic learning points required to learn the power. Okay. As well as the number of mystic points it costs to cast it. So if it costs 5 and it takes 5, that would make it 10. Probably need to see some examples. All right, so sorry, I'm skipping around a little bit. Mana gems regenerate. All right, power. Non-mystics cannot trigger mystic powers, but they can draw mystic energy. Okay. All right, miracles delineated by their alignment. Good, evil, law, chaos. That's the classic. Classic food. I was going to say food pyramid, but no, the pie of alignments. Evil, good, evil, law, chaos. This clerics. All right, let's see. Mystic combat. Casting offensive spells and invocations. All right, critical hits and fumbles. Mystic powerless. Let's see what kind of mystic powers it's talking about. A small book of spells. Firebolt. 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 Damage C. Did I miss what damage means? What's damage C? No. Firebolt. Why did I say damage C? Oh, it's 1d6 damage. Okay. C1. I'm going to zoom in here. My eyes are not what they were. All right. Damage. Sorry, 1d6 damage. E. C1 melee. What is C? Casting time? C bolt? Or is that supposed to be G? I guess that's G. Duration. So, hold on. Effect. 1d6 damage. Costs? No. Count? Casting time? Oh. Okay, sorry. I should have looked up the name level. Effect. Cast time. Geometry. Duration. Range. Okay. Reading, everybody. It's impotent. All right. Firebolt. Stun beam. So, this is the thing. Firebolt doesn't actually... It says it's a bolt of mystic fire, but doesn't actually do anything. Doesn't actually create fire, right? And they'd already established that most of these are going to be... It's fire in the mind of the opponent, right? Stun beam. Very Star Trek-y. Oh, flight. So flight is obviously not an illusion, or that would be pretty funny. The illusion of flight, you can give that to somebody. You can fly, and then they go over a pit and fall and die. That would have been very funny. You can fly, Billy, fly. Polymorph. All right. Obviously not illusory. Invisibility. Lightning bolt person. Okay, can hit one single powerful bolt of lightning that can hit one person for 66. All right, but it's not the classic light, or the what I think of lightning bolt as far as just being able to go through a whole bunch of people on a line. This is a one person. Small book of miracles, healing, harming, divine strike, shield of faith. All right, so you can either get a spiritual hammer or you get a mystical shield, blessing or cursing, restoration or draining. Summoning, hold person, alter terrain. So summoning has gone from being a magic user type spell to being a cleric type spell. Ooh, they got Finger of Death in there. Nice. Numinous Inferno. Great name. Let's see what it does. A massive blazing wave of divine fire. I like it. 66 to all affected alignment opposed creatures. That's cool. I think if you're going to have alignments... mechanically, there should be mechanical sugar for them, so it's nice that they have that. And then, what's over here? Banished creature. Okay. Oops. On Mystic Power Crafting. Elthos is designed to allow you, as GM, to create your own things. This includes spells and miracles. All right, so this I like. I like... I like guidance and rules for making more stuff. It's one of the big, issues or hurdles for GMs in 5th edition and a lot of the Dungeons and Dragons games, particularly the more modern ones, is how do you get to the, you have to try to, people spend the first year, the system's out, trying to figure out behind, the math behind the math, so to speak, that makes everything work. Just give people guidance. Put it in the Dungeon Master's Guide or put it in the Monster Manual. Put somewhere help create monsters, help create stuff that's balanced the way you in your system want to balance things. Because people are going to come up with it anyway, so might as well give them the skinny. I think hiding it doesn't really do much because some people are going to be enterprising enough to dig down and find it anyway, and those that aren't are just going to go by the seat of their pants. So I don't really see the advantage of not publicizing, showing your work, so to speak, behind. Show how you got a monster to be a certain CR and what that means, instead of having everybody guess. So this is nice. This is nice. But I'm not going to go through all of it. Okay, but I'm glad it's there. Tactical rules quick list. All right. I like that. Game Master's Encounters Mini Creation Guide. All right, this is cool. So we're back to game mastery type stuff. I'm just going to keep rolling. When I get to a good stopping point, I might stop because I do have to bail 30 minutes or so. We'll see how far I can get. All right. Game Master Encounters Creation Mini Guide. Here are some things that the GM may wish to consider regarding adventure encounters. Situation. What is central to the situation? Person, place or terrain, or a thing? Treasure, artifact, weapon, etc. I like it. Why is the encounter occurring? Random encounter, a significant place, continuation of the plot in caps. Capital P plot. Okay. Sighting. Who sees whom first? Second, simultaneously, how might the terrain have an effect? All right. Possible resolutions. Negotiations. I always like rules that give you non-combat, put in your brain that you can solve things without combat. Something that gets mistaken a lot with old D&D is how much you should fight versus how much you should try to talk and trick your way out. And it's good here that, it's up front that, hey, negotiation, it's a thing. Use it. Trickery, also a thing. And then, he has combat kind of almost at the bottom. So that's good. Emphasize the fact that you may be able to negotiate with people or trick them, creatures, before you just get into rolling initiative and charging to the fore. Attitude. So in negotiations, attitude, issues, sub-issues, side issues, charisma. Here's the introducing charisma. You can use wisdom plus dex divided by 2 to determine charisma. I almost figure just lump everything together and divide by 4. Because why is dex more important to charisma than strength? I think being healthy, however you want to determine that, should factor into charisma if you're not going to have a charisma stat. More than how nimble you are. Seems like that just puts an onus on all the Jimmy Jackrabbits of the group to be more charismatic, which doesn't seem fair. But whatever. It's a choice, and we can always change it, right? We could take these rules and make of them what we will. Generating random encounters. I like all this stuff because these kind of things are the things that you can pull out if you decide that, hey, I've got this Elthos rules, but I don't want to run Elthos for whatever reason. Maybe my group is married to another rule set. Things like random encounters and those sorts of things. If it's a good tool, you can use it in whichever system you're using. So here we go. You can roll for a place, a dark forest. Let's zoom in here a little bit again. Okay. Dark forest. Treehouse hive. Wow, that's pretty, that's interestingly, it's very specific. Not just a dark forest treehouse, but a dark forest treehouse - hive. Okay, but it's good. What I like about it is it's has a lot of flavor packed into that little thing. The downside, of course, is that it may end up being something that is not applicable in many different circumstances. But I would rather have something flavorful that I can always dial back to it just being a forest, or as opposed to a dark forest, or just being a treehouse as opposed to, or just being a hive, right? But having the flavor is better than not having it. But it's just funny that one, it's super specific sounding. Cave complex and abandoned mine. I probably would have put a slash there. Could be either one, but it's in the caves. Jagged rock hill fort. Again, I like the descriptiveness of the words. I would almost roll. This seems to me almost it's like two tables in one. Give me the dark forest, and then give me, is it in a treehouse? Is it in a hill fort? Is it in ruin? I feel like that you could get more out of this if you split it up a little bit. Maybe you had to jiggle it a little bit, jiggle some other things to make it work. But it's almost really two tables that are crammed into one. Farming, homestead, ruins. Okay. Again, it's got a lot of. It's very visually stimulating, but maybe a little too specific, depending. Gloomy Lake and Lonesome Island, also very nice image. Old Stone Circle, Burial Mound. Again, these are all cool. I might split them up and want to that way you just get more. Like I would like to be able to get Dark Forest and a Burial Mound, right? Like where's the Old Stone Circle? Is it on the Lonesome Island or is it in the Dark Forest? Right. So I might split that up, but it's cool. I like them. They all sound good. They obviously they're sort of generic, but they give you some nice flavor. And they say things again about that hypothetical setting. You have treehouse hives and you have stone circles and you've got, hill forts on jagged rocks. Opponents, Dryad and Fae Knights, Pixie Brigade, Insect Horde, a Ghost, a Knight Errant, a gang of bandits, a wolf pack, a wise old hermit, an outlaw, several bugbears. I say bugbear because he's got the B capped. I don't know, is bugbear, is that a D&D? Obviously, that's probably not something that they own. I don't know if that's part of the OGL or if it's just does it come from mythology or somewhere else, bugbears? I don't know. An adventure party, a wizard's henchman, traveling lord and lady, a beggar and his dog, kobold thieves, a lost child, a giant beetle, poison frog, savage tribesman, a cloud giant. Oh, these are all cool. And you can obviously, I'm going to probably keep saying this, but you could definitely expand those into multiple things, but they all have some nice flavor to it. It feels very Arthurian, these opponents, from Dryads and Fey Knights and the Pixie Brigade to Knights Errant and the Brigands and the Wise Old Hermit. Feels very Arthurian, kind of Arthurian fantasy style. That inherent setting, right? So we're getting more of that inherent setting, even if the idea is to be generic. It's not totally generic. Purpose, gambling, hauling treasure, hunting for food, espionage, guarding a prisoner, on patrol, fleeing an enemy, exploring, lost, scouting and exploring seem kind of similar, but I guess territory versus wilderness. So one, scouting is maybe they know where everything is, but they're looking for enemies. It's a kind of a military thing, where exploring is more you're exploring places you don't know. You're trying to discover unknown, on a quest or pilgrimage. I like that a lot. Very, the purpose is nice because it adds that flavor, right? So you can have, here we have a list of 24 things in 6 different places, but adding that purpose. So you meet the Pixie Brigade and they're gambling or they're transporting treasure, right? Each one of those purposes really changes up what the encounter is about. It's good stuff. I like that very much. I could totally see all, if I didn't want to do anything else with the system, I could pull that out and make good use of it on an inspirational level. Here is a story map example from the world of Elthos. All right, I like these kind of maps. It's very nice. Excuse me, has kind of a, I think this kind of a naive style. Very simple, very evocative, colorful. These are the kind of maps I like. All right. So they got some hex and square maps and a combat tracker. Cool. Got some hex maps for you. Here we go. Nice character sheet. I like it. It's nice. It's clean. Got everything you need. Let's see. Dexterity is the only one that's got that modifier. What does that say? I think that's a little bit. I got to get classes. Modified dex. Don't remember them covering that, but very nice and clean. Nothing wrong with this at all. Totally readable. I feel like I could find stuff on there nice and quickly. And here we have some examples. Example, combat, spell use, and experience game. Examples are good. I like that. It's one of the things, it's interesting, particularly with the way the old rules were written. You actually got a lot of things that were never listed anywhere, but you could kind of see what they were trying to say because of their examples. So you might get a mechanic that would only really show up in the example of, say, wandering the dungeon, because either they gloss over it or they don't talk about it, but you get that insight as to, okay, this is what they rolled in that because of the example. So examples, I think, are really powerful and sometimes overlooked. So it's nice that he has a section here on examples. I'm not going to read through these all, but I'm glad that they're here. And he's got some optional rules. I guess these are beyond. So we already had a tactical options. Here we have some more combat options and some more general options. Changing the route, maybe. So if it was route 4, change that. Dynamic mystical armor class. Okay, carry capacity. All right. New character requisites. All right, so we got some different options. A bunch of options. All the charts. That was one. All right, I'm not going to go through all these charts. Okay, this is cool. Calculations and formulas. Again, I approve. If you know, and hopefully you're writing rule books, the math behind your various things, surface that for us. Let us see it. We can make changes and make sure that they're in line with what you're doing. Or at least know that we're changing something, kind of what it means, how you're using it. I definitely dig that. And we have an index. And then we have notes and house rules. Excellent. Well, great. I had 20 more minutes, but I don't need it. I am done with the rule book. So I guess I'll just give some thoughts on it. I will go through, so things I want to do, I will do on the next. So the next video I'll probably do, I have a login to the online component, so I'll probably hit the online component for the next video so we can see what that's about, because I think that is a big part of the package, and I think it's a very valuable part of the package. I think I also want to go through and make a character, and maybe I will take his suggestion from the beginning of the book and go through a mock combat to see how that works. Maybe make a couple different characters and see how that works. As far as the rules themselves, I think they're pretty neat and clear. I think you could, this is an indie rule book. I don't know how big the team is. I know I talked to the author, like I said, on Discord. I don't know if he laid everything out and did everything himself, or as he has other people, copy editing. But I think you could see where, you could do some extra, editing runs and just go and kind of smooth out. There are definitely some rough edges, I think, in the way things are explained. It's always hard. If you've ever written your own kind of material, it is really hard to kind of really get all those editing passes to make it nice, because there's always things in your head that you know what you mean, and so you don't really see that someone even coming back to it. It's hard to undo the fact that, well, I know that this makes sense. So when I read it, even if my explanation doesn't make total sense, because I know what it is, you have this illusion of what I've written makes sense, right? So I think there are definitely some spots in here where it could use another editing pass, somebody else to come through and give some notes. I know he's going to watch this video. Hopefully, he'll get some insight from this, or at least take it with a grain of salt. Obviously, it's just my point of view of stuff that I like and the kind of way that I think things are laid out. I've done technical writing in the past. I've done layouts in the past, so I'm opinionated on those things, but it doesn't mean I'm right or wrong. It's just kind of what I like. But it's got a very simple rule set. It pretty much has everything you need. Maybe I'll even go through and try to make a couple of mystic powers. I'll have to go through and look at the maths to see if I can how easy it is to make some NPCs or make some creatures. See if I can pull them. You only have this sort of setting that comes through the generic rules, kind of that implied setting, right? So it doesn't have a ton of setting detail, which is really going to depend. I do a lot of homebrew, I'd say a lot. I do pretty much 100% homebrew, but I like to look at setting stuff. I get a lot of ideas from there. So I'm not going to get a lot of ideas, or it's going to be, a lot less ideas coming from this rulebook because it doesn't have that setting for me. But I like the random encounters, and I feel like I already just reading through that gave me some great ideas. I think the combat stuff is good. If I was away for a weekend and I had this book in front of me, I think I could totally run a game with it and I'd be good. I'll go through and see how some of the stuff happens when you're actually trying to use it, because you're reading through it as one thing, but actually trying to go through the steps. Maybe it'll make more sense and things will click for me in some ways that they didn't just reading it. Maybe it'll make less sense and I'll have to be fumbling through. So you'll get to see that, and then I'll hit the online component and check that out. And then I will probably have one final wrap up with everything that I've learned and what I think about the whole system as a whole. But I'm going to step out for now because I got stuff to do, and I'm done with the book. So I hope you dug it. Let me know in any kind of comments wherever you find this. Let me know how you feel about it and about Elthos. I will get links to it, and I will post in descriptions and whatnot, so you can check out the rules for yourself. If you found that you've been swayed into giving this a shot, I definitely want you to be able to get a hold of the book. I think there might be a Kickstarter coming up soon. I mean, obviously the rule books are complete, and I don't want to speak out of turn, so maybe I'll confirm that before I say more about it. I'm not totally sure. But that is Elthos. Thanks for watching. I will talk to you later. And now let me find my... Adios, everybody.